Hi everyone, welcome to Medical Microbiology. Today we will discuss chapter 13, Microbes and Human Interaction. This chapter will be divided into 3 lectures. In the first lecture, we will introduce about the microbes and human interaction. Okay, just everybody know that we are actually not alone. This means that in our body, we actually have a lot of interaction with microbes, microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, or maybe some viruses. Some of them we call as the normal flora or indigenous flora, which is the flora or the microorganism that live on us, and many of them is actually beneficial for us. They provide protections, okay, against some pathogenic flora or microorganism. Also, some microbe is actually involved in our maturation of our immune system. So the T cell, B cells, they need to be mature, and in order to be mature, sometimes they get the challenge from these microorganisms. The problem is some of the microbes actually can invade the sterile tissue, and this is the one that will cause the disease to us. Okay, again, in our body, we have interaction with some microorganism, and this microorganism usually called as a normal resident microbiota, indigenous flora, microflora, normal flora, or commensalism flora. So these are different names for microorganisms that live on us, and most of them are beneficial for our immune system, beneficial for us. And then there are some of them that causing infection. Okay, it is called a pathogen. So pathogen is the microorganism that cause infection to us. So the infection is actually the condition in which pathogenic microbes penetrate the host defense, enter the sterile tissue, and then multiply in that tissue or in the organ. And then infectious disease is the infection that is caused by this pathogen. And they can cause disruption to the tissue and the organ. So again, infectious disease is the disease that caused by pathogens. So again, we actually have contact with microorganisms. Okay, so initial contact over here. Some of them colonize, okay, in our system, and many of them is actually beneficial. This is what we call the normal flora or indigenous flora. But some of them can invade our sterile tissue, and this will cause the infection. So again, infection is happening in the sterile tissue that is invaded by microorganisms. And okay, the one that causing infections, it will challenge our immune system. If our immune system able to take care of this pathogenic flora, then we will develop what we call the immunity. Okay, so they actually also can make our immune system become stronger and better. However, if this pathogenic flora infects our system and our immune system unable to protect us against this pathogenic flora, then it might cause what we call the morbidity or disease, or even mortality or death. Okay, so the disease or death occur when our immune system unable to fight against the infection. Okay, so again, this development of immune system can be beneficial for us, but on the other side, the pathogen can have the adverse effects into our body, which is causing disease or morbidity, or even causing death or mortality. This diagram just showing you how this organism can enter into our body. So usually they use one of what we call the portal of entry. In this case, using the respiratory system, which is our nasal cavity. So enter into our body in this nasal cavity, then it can go to the sterile tissue. Okay, it's causing infection. For example, here what we call the otitis media. Okay, and then maybe enter into the layers of protective layer of brain and spinal cord is called meninges, causing the meningitis, for example. Or if enter into the lungs, can cause pneumonia. So there are several diseases that may be caused by this entrance or infection of pathogens into our sterile tissues. Again, the resident microbiota is mean they use our body as their habitat. So they live on us. Okay? The area that usually become their habitat is the area of our body that have contact with the outside environment. Like for example, the skin, okay, the upper respiratory tract, the nose, for example, throat, or upper GI tract, like the mouth. Okay, and even for the GI tract, even the intestine is considered as the part that also contact with the environment. Therefore, there are also some resident microbiota that live in our intestine, especially the large intestine or colon. There are several types of microbiota. If it is staying only for a short period of time, it is called a transient microbiota. But if they establish and become, the microbes that live for a long time, then they become what we call the resident or resident flora. So table 13.2 is showing us the sterile tissue. It means that the sterile tissue has to be sterile from all type of microorganisms, including the normal flora. Okay, so if the sterile tissue invaded by flora, whether pathogenic flora or the normal flora, then there will be infection. So infection is happening actually in the sterile tissue. Like for example, our heart and circulatory systems are sterile. Okay, no pathogen, no microorganism live over there. There is no normal flora live over there. Okay, liver, kidney and bladder, lungs, brain and spinal cord, bones, ovary or testis, gland, okay, pancreas, salivary gland, sinuses, middle and inner ear, internal eyes. And these are considered as the sterile site of our body. The fluid, for example, okay, blood, it has to be sterile. The urine, when it is still in the kidney, it will be sterile. Okay, in the ureter and also in the urinary bladder. They are actually sterile fluid. Okay. Cerebrospinal fluid and CSF, they are also sterile from microorganisms. Saliva, when it is still in the salivary gland, they are sterile. And semen, also sterile before it is ejected from the the male organs. Now, when is actually the first colonizations of normal flora happen? This is actually started when the baby, during the birth of the baby. Okay, so this is the first time when human actually have the colonizations of normal flora. Okay, so after that there will be additional contribution, which is maybe from the mother, from the father, or from the caregiver, or from the hospital, and also maybe from the food or the drinks that enter into the babies. Okay, so just for information, uterus, it is actually sterile. So whenever the baby born, then he or she will have the first colonization of microorganism or normal flora. Okay. So the resident microbiota or the normal flora, generally they are stable, but sometimes increase or decrease, okay, based on condition of that person. The diet, hygiene, hormone can also affecting the fluctuation of this normal flora. And again, in many cases, this microbiota is actually benefit for the host because they actually protect us against the pathogenic flora. So this is what we call the microbial antagonism or microbial competition. So they compete with other flora, and many of these other flora are actually pathogenic flora. But they can also cause infection if they enter the sterile tissue. And the infection that caused by this normal flora is called the endogenous infection, because the normal flora is actually present on us, and then maybe sometime because of that condition, something happened, the normal flora enter into our sterile tissue, then it will cause infection also. Okay, now the common site of habitat for the indigenous flora and also the types of the normal flora that live on that site. Okay, for example, the first one, of course, the skin. Okay, so skin, this one directly interact with environment, and then there are many microorganisms in the environment. Then some of them will stay and live in our skin. So some of the normal flora of the skin are Pseudomonas, Micrococcus, Corynebacterium, Propionibacterium, and this one is actually can cause acne, okay, Propionibacterium acne. So one time this normal flora, can cause the acne to the host, Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. So these are the types of normal flora that live in our skin. And then for the fungi, okay, so like Candida, Malassezia, and Rhodotorula, these are a normal flora or fungi that usually also live in our skin. For the arthropods, this is actually animal, Demodex mite is an example of some insect. Okay, this is actually lice that live on human skin. And then for GI tract, okay, for GI tract, there are several locations. If it is the mouth or the oral cavity, so the bacteria that live in this cavity, mostly Streptococcus, Neisseria, Fillonella, Fusobacterium, Lactobacillus, Bacteroides, Actinomyces, Echinella, Treponema, and Haemophilus. So this is a bacteria that usually live in oral cavity or in the mouth. Fungi, mostly Candida species. And for the protozoa, there is also an Amoeba gingivars. So this is in the mouth. Okay, GI tract. Another location is in the intestine, especially large intestine. So another name of large intestine is colon. Okay, examples of bacteria that live in this colon are Bacteroides, Fusobacterium, okay, Clostridium, Lactobacillus, E. coli. Okay, the name is telling them. So this bacteria live in colon. Fungi like Candida, protozoa maybe in Amoeba coli. Again, name is telling you the equation. Trichomonas hominis. For the respiratory tract, it will be the upper respiratory tract, like the nose and the throat. Okay, because lower respiratory tract, like lungs, it has to be sterile. Okay, so upper respiratory tract, there are some bacteria that also live in this area. And then for the genital tract, okay, bacteria that live in this area mostly Lactobacillus, Staphylococcus, and then for the fungi mostly Candida. For the urinary tract, bacteria that live, normal bacteria that live here, mostly Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Lactobacillus, eyes. Okay, so eyes also, face direct to the environment, so therefore there are some bacteria that also live on our eyes, like Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Neisseria. And the ear, of course, this should be the outer ear, because the inner ear and the middle ear should be sterile. Okay, so the one that is live in outer ear, mostly Staphylococcus bacteria. For fungi, sometimes Aspergillus, Penicillium, Candida, and yeast. So this is the site that usually normal flora live. Again, for the first site, which is the skin, okay, mostly they will this normal flora will live on the top layer of the skin, which is the epidermis. Some of them maybe penetrate a little bit to the dermis area. Okay, so the one that live stable in this area is called the resident flora. The one that just live for short time, okay, sometimes they increase the number, sometimes they actually out from the area, is called the transient normal flora. Okay, GI tract. And the whole GI tract is actually face to the environment directly. Yeah, just remember when we eat, when we drink, the food and the drink that we take is actually carry a lot of bacteria. So therefore, the whole GI tract organ over here, starting from the mouth, the throat, the esophagus, stomach, intestine, rectum, and anus, they're all actually facing to the environment. Then they usually also have normal flora that live on this side. So they become habitat for some normal flora. Therefore, again, mostly the oral cavity will have a lot of normal flora that stay in this area, and also the large intestine, and this is the second uh, organs of GI tract that also have many normal flora that live on it. Okay, for the mouth, there are many of them. Okay, especially if we don't really clean our mouth, our teeth, then there will be a lot of normal flora or microorganisms that live in this area. So many of them in the genus of Streptococcus, like Streptococcus sanguis, Streptococcus salivarius, Streptococcus mitis. So this is a type of bacteria that usually live in our mouth. And the second part of GI tract that usually have a lot of normal flora or microorganisms is the large intestine. And examples of bacteria that live in this place is Bacteroides, Bifidobacterium, Fusobacterium, Clostridium. Okay? So these are examples of bacteria that usually live in this place. Respiratory tract, okay, and again, mostly on the upper, okay, upper respiratory tract. Okay, that's the area that usually have a lot of normal flora. The lower respiratory tract over here, they are sterile. Okay? So if there are flora that live in the sterile tissue, then we have infection. Okay. So again, most of the normal flora will stay in the upper respiratory tract, like for example nasal cavity, mostly Staphylococcus, Streptococcus bacteria, Neisseria bacteria. For the genitourinary tract, okay, so, mostly again in the lower part. Okay, like for example, for the female side will be around this, okay, like vagina, urethra. Okay, that's the place where some normal flora maybe live. For the male, it's the same, maybe the lower part over here, which is mostly in the urethra. Okay, and the upper part, like for example, bladder, kidney, testicle, okay, there will be, they are sterile. Okay, so the same thing with this uterus, for example. Okay, kidney, bladder, they are also sterile tissue. So no microorganism live in the sterile tissue. If they infect the sterile tissue, then we have the infection. And again, normal flora is, many of them is actually essential to us. They protect us against some pathogenic flora. So this is the reason why there is an idea to put normal flora in the diet. It's called the probiotics. It is to increase or to balance normal flora, especially in the large intestine. Okay, so this is the introduction of normal flora back into the body. Okay, this is the development of infection. Again, the infection is happening when the flora, whether normal flora or pathogenic flora, enter into the sterile tissue. The first thing, okay, they have to find the portal of entry. And again, portal of entry will be organs that contact with the environment directly, like skin, okay, GI tract, upper respiratory tract, urogenital tract, okay, and some indigenous biota actually also able to enter to the sterile tissue and cause infection. And then after finding the entry, okay, the portal of entry, then they have to attach to this site. Okay, so remember, virus, they use spike to attach to the host cell. Bacteria, they use fimbriae, sometimes capsule, glycocalyx. Okay, yeah, this is viral spike. Worm, for example, they have hook on their head, yeah, to attach to the tissue or to the cell. And then after they attach to that site or the cell, then they have to be able to survive against the host defense mechanism. Okay, so some bacteria, for example, have capsule that make them able to avoid the phagocytosis, killing by the white blood cell. Okay, and also, yeah, some of them able to have some action that make them, live or live fighting against the host immune system. After surviving the host defense, then they have the ability to cause damage to the host tissue and then causing the disease. Okay, they actually produce what we call the virulent factors. Okay, so virulent factors are factors, mostly chemicals, that produced by the microorganisms to damage the host tissue. So some virulent factors like toxin, so some bacteria or microorganism actually produce toxin to damage the host tissue. Some bacteria or microorganism also produce enzymes that can damage the host tissue. Okay. Some of them also produce chemical or use chemical to causing lysis, uh, like for example lysis on the host red blood cell. So it's actually break the red blood cell. And then they also can cause the indirect damage to the host tissue. And then some of them, yeah, so they stay inside the cell. They also can exit from the host tissue, okay? And then when they exit, they actually will be able to transfer to the next host, okay? So they actually, when they exit the host tissue, they actually able to transfer to other hosts, maybe either human or maybe animals. Okay, so the portal of exit will be very similar with the portal of entry, like for example, respiratory tract, skin scale, okay, so feces, okay, urogenital tract, like urine. So some urine maybe carry some microorganism, and then if we enter into the system, into the environment, it might be able to transfer to other, or maybe through blood. Okay, so blood that has microorganism or disease on it can also be transferred to other hosts. This is some major factors in development of infection. Okay, first, the age. So all age or extremely youth, like a baby, for example, or premature, most of them are having less immune system. I mean, their immune system for the baby usually is not developed yet. For the old people, their immune system is become weaker. So this is weaker immune system. Therefore, they usually have the higher risk to get infection. Genetic defects in immunity, okay, like people with AIDS, for example, then AIDS people usually will have higher risk to get the infection. Surgery and organ transplant, this one also can increase the risk of getting the infection. Organic disease like cancer, liver malfunction, and diabetes will also increase the risk of having infection. Chemotherapy, people with cancer sometimes they have chemotherapy, and these chemotherapies most of the time will decrease the immune system. So people with the chemotherapy usually also have the higher risk to get the infection. Physical and mental stress. This is also something that can increase the risk of getting infection. And other infection can also causing the in other infection will come and causing the higher risk of getting a new infection. Okay, for the pathogens, okay, remember we have the normal flora, which is mostly benefit us, and the pathogenic flora, which is the microorganism that can cause disease to human. Okay, so the pathogens can be divided into two types. The first one is called the true pathogen. So true pathogen is microorganism then that capable of causing disease in healthy persons. Like for example, flu. So when the flu virus enter into human body, and it doesn't matter whether this human body is healthy or unhealthy, this flu virus can cause infection to him. Okay, so it able to cause disease in healthy person. This is what we call the true pathogen. The second type of pathogen is called the opportunistic pathogen. Mostly they are normal flora. Okay? So this normal flora usually will not cause disease to healthy person, but it might cause disease to people with lower or compromised immune system. Like for example, people with AIDS, they usually can get the infection easier compared to the healthy person. So some organism like maybe Streptococcus, okay, or E. coli maybe will not cause disease to healthy human, but it might cause disease to people with AIDS, because people with AIDS, they actually have lower immune system. So the organism that can cause disease, okay, to people with weaker immune system but will not cause disease to normal healthy human, it is called the opportunistic pathogen. And then virulent factors, again, this is the factor that produced by the microorganism that damage the host cell and causing the disease. Mostly these virulent factors are enzymes and toxin. Okay, there are some other type maybe, but mostly enzyme and toxins. These are the virulent factors that produced by the organism, microorganism. I think that's all for lecture number 1. So we will meet again on lecture number 2, which is stages of infection. Goodbye now.